Thank you, everyone, for being here talking about a very serious topic in Colombia. As the security situation um, in Colombia implies challenges. Many of those situations are coming from many years, and there are new actors and new circumstances, and others have come up recently. Colombia has experienced facing these challenges, and there is a very thorough situation that allows to determine which are the combinations and of measures. We also know some measures that may sound good, but which may be worsening the topics. Today, we're going to talk about the security situation, what we know so far about the proposals, and the expectation of the incoming president. Thank you, Ken, and thank you all for your participation in this important conversation. We always try to start with the positive things before we go to the negative part, where I would like to talk about the progress. There has been improvements in the rural areas, which are the sustainable achievement of total peace. What do you think about this, Juanita, in terms of what we've seen in the past year? Thank you, Ken Marta, for the greetings to Jairo. It is a pleasure to share with you. From Human Rights Watch in the different concepts that we have issued, we reported a reduction of human rights. In other words, actions there is a reduction um, of actions in by SMAT and in the different fight against organized crime. So once we talk about the challenges, there are issues that we should address. And I would say that this is a positive outcome, despite the fact that the large reform to the security sector. I would say that the use of the reform would in the Petro administration. So they left aside the possibility to and they advanced to have better use. Have we've heard about the structural changes, a reduction on the violation of human rights. This is positive and this is sustainable. Thank you for the invitation, Ben and Ken. Greetings to Juanita, Andres. It is extremely enriching to talk about these topics, which are complex. I would add a couple of things which we should address, and these may imply outcomes. Trying to intervene or analyze with the urban outlawed groups. This is an important aspect. We may discuss if it was legal, but this is important to the country. And I think that this is an interesting framework for security purposes. And as mentioned by Juanita, we discussed about the salary conditions, or I don't know if we should call it salary, but the SL-18 in Colombia, and what has to do with the police, there is something we need to talk about the public remuneration in the Colombian setting. And I think that this is something that we had to address. And this is the type of conversation. And the third topic, which should be sustainable, prevention. This is something that should have been addressed, but this is a fundamental aspect when we want to have a balanced policy with the prosecution as to the recruiting. We need to address if this is sustainable. That this is something that is being tabled, and this government tried to address this. This first round should be in the. Let's talk about the rural changes in the state presence and the outcomes that we have seen in terms of security. I agree with what Juanita mentioned in terms of the positive aspects. I would like to start with an idea. Apart from the political dispute, we need to recognize that although there are significant challenges, we should not say that this is the worst time ever. We have significant challenges, and we can discuss the growth in power, but this is not the worst time ever, and those groups are not in the best time. The capacity to generate income has grown significantly, and other actors involved in the generation of those illegal processes. This is not the worst time ever because it is clearly not the case. There is a significant change in the dynamic, and we're not understanding of the fact that we have groups that have grown, and the main enemy is not the state. If you want to summarize a significant change in the dynamic of the country, not only the past government, but which is including the Duque government and Petro, those are supporting the state. And that will be the summary of this situation. I like what Andres mentioned because this is one of the major conversations in the country. We're going back to the past, and we're taking um, these processes. So doing an exercise like the one that we are doing, um, the new policy, we need to recognize some aspects of the past, and this is the criminal aspect today. Um, the main uh, uh, situation in Antioquia, in Cauca, what mining is causing it is even more severe compared to drug trafficking. So I think that this is a topic that should be addressed, and it is not the same scenario. I would say that it is even more complex without having the same symptoms of the past. So we could be talking about this because should not follow the conversation that we had 40 years ago. Thank you, Jairo. So just to open this conversation, which are the main challenges or in terms of security, there are more actors of evolution in terms of security. So the balance today and the negative part or the largest challenge, where are we standing? Andres, would you like to begin with that? Uh, given the conversation of Jairo, there are several topics that I would like to address. We do have challenges in different agendas and pathways. The first one, the main challenge, has to do with the disputes, and it has to do with the change in dynamics by the different groups. The Colombian state has not provided a true response uh, to address the situation with the different groups in Bajo Cauca, in Catatumbo, in the largest part of Pacific area. There is a question that the federal government didn't address to address these disputes, which are mainly amongst the armed group. There are urban challenges. There is an urban agenda, and that urban agenda has to do with the accumulation of revenues, illegal revenues, and it is not just because they're produced. Eh, um, there is asset laundering in Colombia. You can produce illegal revenues, but they're laundered in the urban centers. So this is why the urban and the agenda between the illegal revenues is significant, and there are two institutional. One is the sectoral um, reform, and we all agree, but politically it's not viable, and we're going to keep on addressing the sectoral, and the others is significant around is total peace. What are we going to do with total peace? There are open discussion groups, and today we don't know if they will end, if those groups will have continuity. The state needs to know what's going to happen. Just for all of you to know about this, when you talk about sectoral reform, what are you referring to? The federal government in campaign, um, they suggested reforms. They didn't want to continue with the SMAT, or they didn't want to continue with the police. And this is a discussion you had prior conversation with General Naranjo. The vast majority of the sectoral reform, and this is not something that was progressed with the government. We can talk about the different policies. Juanita, the first thing is that this is obvious, and as Andres mentioned, we're not in the worst time in terms of security, but we need to indicate that this is a 4-year period where the security situation worsened. Kidnapping increased by 117%, recruiting 270%. That was a significant increase. at 2% if you compare this to 2010. The panorama is not good. If we talk about the humanitarian situation, in my opinion, there are three essential elements, the incoming government should correct this. Um, the first thing is that the type of criminal approach that we're facing today, which is highly fragmented, is much more organized, where the illegal revenue is there. They need they but their purpose is not to take over power. So I think that we're far from having parties in the conflict. There is organized crime, and Colombia is good, and its capacity to professionalize its law enforcement. They have not done the same task as to strengthening the capacity to administer justice, which is the focus of a fight against illegal crime. These characteristic of justice, I think that the flaw in is that we haven't had an effective policy on security to face this criminal approach. The second thing, the perverse, um, from Human Rights Watch, we documented the case of Catatumbo, Punto Mayo, and the conclusion is the total peace by having a ceasefire, which are not monitored at the same time. They allow different groups to use negotiation to strengthen this process from the provision of Colombian IDs, re-socialization camps to enforce the different rules, and paz total or total peace, which indicates that nothing is agreed until and everything is agreed. And the former Chancellor Leva, we are playing jazz and not classic music. And that was his speech. In practice, what he generated was trial and error at the territorial level, where the communities in Catatumbo was vulnerable by implementing agreements, and with the ELN, um, with Front 33, there was a blacklist at the time, and there was no state to protect them. And the perverse, that's the total peace perverse effects. And the third thing is the pending debt, which is nothing else for those who have fallen Gakore, um, launched a policy for security. And it was interesting to look at the retired police and militaries. They said that this is not something that will be solved by the military. So the militaries are really clear, and civilians said that they need a military approach. So and this is nothing different for purposes of rural security, which I'm focusing on. That's the debt. There has to be basic utilities as to prevent these areas to avoid the recruitment of children. There is something that I would like to mention. Um, we're talking about criminal governance, but we need to talk about the institutional governance. At the end of the day, we want the state together to provide legitimate goods and services. We have forgotten about the plateado situation. This is the definition of an exercise that was not comprehensive. At that time, I was the security commanders, and you looked at the list of responsibilities, and and they would used to say, "Well, I have accomplished 50. You still need 150 more." So there. And this is something that we have discussed, and this is something that has to do with the government. In a country like Colombia, you cannot have a confrontation or at least having um, a policy to gain access, regardless if we are online, because this is the situation. And one of the recommendations, and apparently there is an intention, is to have honest conversations with mayors and governors and to generate a feasible pathway. We cannot solve the problems in 6 months, but we need to send coordination messages. I would say that the Valle had we always had the intention to have a comprehensive policy instead of talking about eradication. So this is a challenge, and the coordination with the mayor's office and the governor's office is important. And a third topic that has been tabled, there was they s- they're talking about 40 billion, and how can we fund this? Today, the security resources, if we talk about um, um, we don't have uh, a budget, we have an under budgeted budget. And I think that we need to talk about the Congress to promote the financial mechanisms. But if we don't have the resources, then there will be no progress. So there has to be local coordination, institutional coordination in the defense and in the justice sector. Because if we want to have governance, we need to have a strong uh, properties, and we should talk about the inspectors, police inspectors in Colombia. That will be interesting to address. The budget aspect, the security budget, is extremely important. We will address this in further detail. Uh, But I would like to talk about the specific proposals that we have heard in the campaign, the elections, so that we can understand which are the main policies of the incoming government, what we have seen, the achievements uh, um, uh, in the first 90 days of the mandate, and which are the security models, like or the security the security approach that they want to following the Bukele government. What we have seen, especially in this period prior to Abelardo de la Espriella assuming or taking office, they want to maintain a person retired, and I think that this is a wrong decision. I think that the country is losing a lot in this case. This is something that was built since back in the 90s, and that I have the best references of the of General Mora. That's not a good idea for the country, and these and those policy options that had been restricted from the campaign. Why? Because what we're seeing at this time is that although there are challenges, what Abelardo de la Espriella has shown is an urban response. I would like to see more minutes with the governments, the mayors of the cities have more capacity to manage their situation. And I, I'm so there is a rupture. Um, uh, with the petro government, but this shouldn't, but it shouldn't be reinforced with the capital. Then, and it's taking a lot of relevance. And I would say that there has to be more balance. I do see that not only in security, we are going to have a government with different levels of power. Barranquilla is gaining relevance, and uh, and and we're gonna have a government less centered in Bogotá. I don't know if this is good or bad because the national executive should gain more relevance. And then finally, something that, in my opinion, is lacking presence with I would like to see more announcements related to pursuit of illegal economy or work around this, because if you look at the development program we're going to pursue illegal money, we have not done that. And I was expecting that, and there is no information. There is something that I would like to add. We have not talked about the EAF or DIAN. We don't have directors in the prior. They were not directly appointed. But yesterday, um, De La Espriella, he is not going to focus on the high target companies. Let's look at UEAF. And Diane has a modern approach, and let's talk about the DNI and what this implies for the security of the state. So, the shield of the Americas and is not a way out. The budget way out. This is a support, but there's a major opportunity to work in the regional approach with Peru and Venezuela, Ecuador and Bolivia being the main access uh, related to mining. So this there has to be a coordination. What we can do, it will generate an impact on the Southwest. So the financial aspect, as mentioned by Andres, we already heard the president not. He said that he was going to follow the high target, um, uh, and in the short term, this could be a very important opportunity on the southwestern uh, security. Talking about the international approaches of El Salvador, if it is important to follow these address. What do you think? Because we have heard a lot about this model and how could these be implemented in Colombia? To your initial question, the government of Las Priella has not begun, and we are not clear as to the security policy that they will implement. So going to your question, these are the models that he has referred, and in the Patriota 2.0, the collaboration with the Trump government, the collaboration of Ecuador, yeah, Bukele. We have had exceptions in Ecuador, so 91,000 persons have been detained. And this is, and there are suspended times. There are many persons who have not heard um, of a judge in the prison system. They cannot talk to their relatives, lawyers. Only at the beginning at the of the year, 3.3 years, but there were no trials in massive cases. They could not address or they could not have the lawyers. Not only these are collective approaches so that they can try to defend their client. And there are reforms to reduce any independence. Bukele, before time, with the control of the assembly, he removed the prosecutor in the Bukele government. He the same situation occurred. They they and then with the majorities, they allowed for a reform to make it faster, and then indefinite re-election. So today, Bukele, in a shorter time frame, achieved what the regime in Venezuela achieved in 20 years. So our field work is confirming there's been a significant reduction of the homicide rate in El Salvador. It is not just from Bukele, but there was a homicide rate decrease, and it's been established that first in that there were agreements with the gangs, and only when they started to fail to accomplish, we have documented more than 400 uh, fatalities, homicides. We have documented sexual violence in jails. We did some work within the um, uh, I think the Bukele government has implied a violation of human rights, and and these shouldn't be applicable in terms of the type of criminal approach that gangs imply compared to the organized crime. Let's talk about the Novoa model in we can repeat that in Colombia. The supply at this time of cooperation of the Trump administration with Novoa is something that is useful for the U.S., which is the synthetic fight in the Caribbean, which have implied 240 extrajudicial um, approaches. Many of these boats may have produced. This is something that we have determined. Where the where uh, posting a video in the social media. That's what the Novoa government is being demanded for, and what this indicates is that the operational um, joint operation between Ecuador and the United States implied the burning, the arbitrary detention of four Colombians, and this is something that we verified they were tortured by the Ecuadorian government or army. The U.S. government, um, there was no intelligence, and this was just the information supplied by the U.S. And this is a logic that is useful, but we remain with the problem. There was an increase of the homicide rate by 40%. So I'll the Bukele or the Novoa government is not good. The In terms of roles and functions, who is going to fund the the jail system? Talking about the resources, uh, Colombia may want to build 10 super or mega prisons, and we have a huge problem with IMPEC. The exercise here of the prosecution models is uh, in the case of the cities, we have people in in police stations. So the prison system has to be a focus. There has to be creativity about this to determine which is the criminal system that we want to have or we can fund, and this will require a significant and roles and functions as mentioned by Preciado. There are no roles in this regard. There's a major opportunity, and this is worth revisiting. In the prosecution system, we would there has to be a conversation with the prosecutor's office and the government. What has been shown is that discriminate captures are not making any sense. So we need to determine which are the crimes that will be privileged to have to reduce the criminal governance and the presence that is causing violence in the different territories, because the homicide rate is not acceptable, and this does not allow for the economic or social development of the country. And and if we are not clear about the budget, then there's nothing we can do in terms of policy. I want to go back to a comment that you just made in the conversation, and if I'm not wrong, you spoke about the the line of thought of the new Ministry of Defense, or a restricted model. Why do you say that? Why can why are we talking about the two policies of the incoming government? Talking about the main policy of the incoming government, how can this be interpreted? How can why is it restricted? I'm sorry about the Spanglish mixture. I want to expand a little bit more. We in the conversation, we want to understand which are the challenges, and there are challenges that are more related to the rural area and others which are urban. These are two significant challenges so far in the government. This is an incoming government. I see that there is a restriction. A lot of there is an urban agenda which is natural. It is interesting to for the president to talk with the urban majors, but these well. And this is restricted. So far, we don't have any announcements in terms of what's going to happen with the total peace process. Um, he spoke about Diane, and this is something that will be addressed. We don't know anything about the budget or resources or capacities because this idea of following high target objectives, um, this is based on the fact that the government will have a lot of capacity, and and the reality uh, is that this government will have less capacity of force deployment. So those capacities are reduced, and that's the diagnosis that we have with the figures that have been officially made available. So, so this is what so there's a restricted vision, even in a policy of more authority, more commitment to authority. There are announcements. We have not talked about the community of intelligence, which is completely broken. We don't have intelligence to pursue those high target. So, so this is why I call it restrictive. But there is a final comment that I would like to know, that either for good or bad, the total piece of government president of the in the pursuit of we need to have the pursuit with the involvement of the military and police forces. Total peace has implied a total discussion between the rural and the urban processes. I think that the vision is restricted because we are not certain, or we are considering that the government of Abelardo de las Perea is following the subjection to justice. But the Colombian case is that the pursuit is not one. The this is so this is why we need to have all the different policy options, and I think that this is restricted, at least with the announcements given so far. we should not focus. We should not lose the focus on the Congress. And this is something that has been built through years. There are conversation items or instruments, and there are funding mm, processes, but there has to be a possibility to bring two components, which is subjection and Colombia needs to have the public policy instruments. And at times, the Congress is fundamental in these 4 years. We need to see what will take place, and 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 this is just one example of the important conversation that we need to provide to the Congress, and we need to understand what will the Congress mean for the incoming government and development plan. Let's go to the international aspect. You spoke about, Juanita, you spoke about a strategy to generate content that implies a serious strategy to get to the roots uh, of the organized crime. How can the government take advantage of the proximity that he will have with Trump on the conservative side? Is there any possibility to have U.S. troops in Colombia? What type of assistance from Ecuador and the U.S. under the shield of the Americas could contribute to to the long-term solutions of the challenges that we have discussed? To me, the response is justice. The justice administration has to be strengthened. And in an ideal world, geopolitically, the thing is difficult. Having presidents in Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia wishing to work on this around Bolivia will be great. And so I I think they want to look at the social media. If you want to take advantage of this situation, we need to strengthen the forensic technical investigation. What's been, despite the fact that all the countries are talking about insecurity, you want to find out what's the financial intelligence or the technical approach. In in Ecuador is sending ballistic um, uh, evidence to Quito. So if we don't address this, we're not going to be effective. Criminal policy, it is not working in any scenario if there's no strategic, this implies strategic committees. We need to focus on asset laundering, homicide, and we should not focus uh, on the use of weapons. Those crimes should be addressed. That this is an essential element. Third, the trust capacity. Any citizen, even if it is a petty crime, should have institutional responses. I was in Querétaro, and Querétaro has a system that understands the triage. They determine the system. If we do not recover these, and if people say filing a complaint, um, this implies um, the strengthening of programs for victims. Organized crime is operating from jails in Latin America, and the debt is not just um, the it is about understanding prison where people can be reconstructed. And this is not something, if we we have prisons which are overcrowded. This is a place. This has to be a place to rebuild the life of people. So it has to go hand in hand with new indicators. If we measure this logic in terms of security, we are not heading anywhere. In the case of Colombia, there has to be progress we have to um, rebuild the prison system. So there are many systems that there has to be an articulation between the prison system. In Colombia and in Latin America, there is no security, there is no effective policy if it is not a justice policy. Thank you, Juanita. Is there any place in the Shield of Americas um, apart from the Synatic actions? Let's remember that the Orion operation has been there for 8 years, and it's been a joint operation in Latin America, and Colombia has been fundamental through the Army or through the Navy in terms of interdiction. Colombia has been a strategic partner for the U.S., and Colombia will have the opportunity to have a different position in the Shield of Americas to to have a strategic approach. If we are gathered here, there has to be an objective that weakens the capacities of organized crime. So I would say, hopefully, Colombia in uh, there is a restructuration process. Uh, in Southcom, they have built these models. Hopefully, they can. Colombia may have actions that will make more sense to weaken the organized crime. So there's a major opportunity, and hopefully, the Patriot plan. The Patriot Plan, in terms of international cooperation, hopefully could become a strategy more sophisticated that will allow gathering the cooperation capacity without replacing the obligation of Colombia in terms of the issues that we have. Hopefully, with this government, we can have these top level conversations to 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 show people that people that are changing lives. And this is a huge debate. We shouldn't go back to operational indicators, but transformation indicators. And this is something that should be concerning. And in addition to what Jairo mentioned, decades of cooperation and the different processes, and after so much learning, we should ask the question: what will be the theory of change in terms of cooperation if the final objective is to achieve this, and this is not useful to solve the raw problem. The theory of change to be focused on recognizing that our priority should have less operation. So this should be our focus, and I think that we need to uh, address this at the government level, because we lost that capacity to have campaigns in Latin American programs for youth prevention or crime prevention. But the focus should, how can we make sure the fight against the drugs shouldn't be addressed this way? How can we reduce the damages and violence? How can we make sure that the drug trafficking process, because the aggregated demand in substances like cocaine is not reduced? We need to make sure uh, uh, if the change is heading on that direction, I think it will be great. Uh, this is something that we should do, and this is something that our states can do. But this is a vicious circle of policy that will not imply any effective results. Thank you, Andrés, Felipe, Jairo, Ben, and Ken for this conversation, and thanks to the Stimson. We are ex exceeding times out, so please follow us on the social media so that we can become aware of the following events, and the videos will be available in cca.com. Thank you. Thank you, our luxury panelists.